Hi, everybody. It's great to see you guys. I'm coming to you live this morning from the Catskills in upstate New York. My name is Sasha Graham, and for any of you who don't know me, I'm the author, and happy to be a Llewellyn author of a few titles. I'm the author of Tarot Diva, of 365 tarot spells. I wrote a book called 365 Tarot Spreads. Yeah, we are getting, oh, has the feedback disappeared? Wow, this sounds crazy, like I'm inside of, yeah. I can hear the echo too on my end. Does Llewellyn, I have to mute my computer? Okay, I've just muted my computer. Can you guys still hear me? Oh, perfect, you can hear me. Excellent, okay, and you guys can hear my, all right, I can't, all right, fantastic. I apologize, I'm a little technologically challenged. Anyway, so, sorry about that. My name is Sasha Graham, and I'm a Llewellyn author, obviously. I'm really excited to be here this morning to talk to you guys about shadow work. So my new deck, the Darkwood Tarot, which has just been released last week, I think it began shipping. This is I created this to be a shadow deck. Now, why a shadow deck? There's 10 million tarot decks out there. Why create a deck that is based in darkness? Why create a deck where we want to move into places within ourselves and in our lives that's uncomfortable? Well, I love tarot and I love reading, and we read the cards, right, for a million different reasons, right? We might pull a card every morning to see what we have to look forward to. It's so much fun to pull cards with our friends. But I think that the most eloquent and important way that we can use tarot is for our own personal evolution, right? And I think that we have a tendency, it's very easy, especially when we're reading cards for ourselves. It's very easy to kind of look at just the light side, right? You can flip a card and say, oh, it's the Fool. Here I am, like a spirit on a journey of evolution. And yes, that's true. And yes, that's valid. But we want to be able to look at the darker sides of ourselves, right? We want to be able, like, what's the point of using a tarot? What is the point of divination if it's not pushing us past our comfort zone, if it's not showing us something that we haven't necessarily seen or recognized about ourselves? Now, evolution and growth and looking at yourself isn't always comfortable, right? But if you're not comfortable, you're not evolving. And you can look at this in like the kind of duality of life, right? When you're looking at something like a sunset or a canyon or a desert, and it's so beautiful, it hurts, right? It's breaking you open, right? So it is in these moments of either great beauty or great sadness or great distress that literally, and I always associate that with the Three of Swords tarot card, which is the heart opener. This is the place where you are broken open. And once you're broken open, you can move forward and expand and evolve. And that's what happens for the Shadow Witch in this tarot deck. Her heart is broken. And this is what propels her on her journey into the dark would. So if she had never experienced that heartbreak, she would never have embarked on this journey that's going to break, that's going to change her life and change who it is that she is. So I'm a huge proponent of taking the challenges and taking this hard stuff and really embracing it and not running away from it. And for any of you out there who are professional tarot readers, don't come to us when things are great, right? We are kind of there on the edges of the visible world, you know, like with a foot in each world, with our arms open. So when people are in trauma, when people are confused, when people are terrified, they can come running towards us. We can embrace them and we can tell them that it's going to be okay, that these are the good places to be. So I feel obviously very passionate about shadow work. So why, what is the shadow? Let me quickly define it for you guys, anybody who's curious exactly what it is. The shadow is that place inside of ourselves where we repress anything and everything. So there can be great things in the shadow. There can be horrible things in the shadow. When you're a child and your mother tells you, you know, don't steal, don't poke, don't be mean. And even though that's something that you want to do, you put that down. You repress those kind of automatic instincts, right? So the shadow becomes this well of places and things that we want that we don't necessarily allow ourselves to have in order to fit into any culture that we are a part of. Nice girls don't do this. Polite people do that. All of the behaviors that you would like to display, the instincts you'd like to have, but aren't necessarily allowed to or told not to, gets put down into the shadow. On the other hand, wonderful things can be placed in our shadows as well. So if there's a passion that you had, say you loved to sing, say you sang like a songbird, you know, when you were a young child, and someone somewhere, you know, looked at you and said, that's terrible, or you'll never make a living doing that, or you're ridiculous, that's silly. Maybe somebody made fun of you. You took that joy, that love, that freedom that you felt singing, writing, expressing yourself, and shoved that down into your shadow, perhaps, and decided that you wouldn't do it. When you decide you're not good enough for something or someone, you put that in the shadow. So you can start to see that the shadow, right, is this big kind of loamy, powerful soup, right? I like to think of it like the dirt of a garden, right? It's really this darkness, the shadow is really kind of like the building block of the universe, right? Because it's got all of this desires and passions and things that you want, things that you're afraid of, and it's all tamped down inside of this darkness. Now, traditional New Age thought will say, love and light is good. And yes, love and light is good. And it's our natural instinct, right? When we think of angels and inspiration, we look up. You know, if you look at cross-culturally, every sacred space from churches to temples have temples, right? Facing up. And what do we place down in the darkness, right? That's where the dead go. That's where devils and demons and like the scary stuff is. But that's also from where we spring, right? This is part of the death card, right? This idea of integrating both the light and the dark, right? This is not taking things on just the surface material, what I can see. This is moving deeper, which is what tarot card readers, this is what we do. This is part and parcel. So just really quickly, I want to say that integrating the light and the dark leads to something you'll find in the Temperance card, which is this idea of complexity. In the Temperance card, we see the Temperance angel balancing and fusing the two energies of two cups. Often she's pictured over a pond. The idea of holding two opposites at the same time of lightness and darkness. And this serves us in so many ways. And we see this today with what's going on, the ability to stay in the same space with someone who holds a different opinion than you and say, okay, well, that's okay. I'm not going to shut them down. I'm going to sit there with this. When we're acknowledging our own shadow, it leads to greater complexity and richness and depth in our own relationships. And that when you move into the shadow, you're able to acknowledge maybe some of the not so pretty things that are inside of you. For instance, I love my husband, you know, more than anyone. Like, love, 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 adore that man. Sometimes I would like to murder him. Like, literally every ounce of me would like to, you know, smother him with a pillow. I can hold those, but this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the idea of acknowledging dark, squirmy, yucky things. And just by acknowledging them doesn't mean that we necessarily have to act on them. Okay, so how can we start actively working with our shadows? How can we kind of figure out what may be lurking down there? So first, I'd like to take you guys through an exercise that you don't even need a tarot deck to do. So what I'd like you to do is take a piece of paper and a pen, or if you're not near a paper and a pen, just like on the notes application on your phone or wherever, I just want you to make a quick list of 5 things. And it could be 3, it doesn't have to be 5. 5 things that drive you crazy about other people. Now, it could be one person in particular. It could be someone you don't even know. It could be a bunch of random different things, but like, what keeps you up at night and super totally aggravated when people do this thing? Like, you know, that person who comes over and you're like, oh, there she is, there she's at it again. Make a list, if you can, of 5 things that drive you crazy about other people. I'll give you a couple, I'll give you like a minute to sit and to think about this. What just gets your goat? What just makes you pop your top? And like I said, 2 or 3 things even, that's fine. That's just fine too. Okay, so taking a look at the things that you've listed. Circle the one thing that's the worst. The one thing that you really can't stand. Okay. The thing that you circled is the quality that is most pronounced inside of your shadow self. That is the one quality that you need to figure out how to integrate into your life, right? Because all of life is a projection, right? And what we focus on is what's inside of us. So it's really interesting. I love that. I love that exercise. And that's something that you can also keep in mind just as you move through your life, right? And part of, you know, sort of keeping on top of yourself. What is getting me? What's getting my goat? I mean, how many of us have been super annoyed by someone because they're doing exactly what we wish we were doing, right? That's a really, like, jealousy is one of those things in the shadow self that is really great to acknowledge, like, because there's nothing about shadow work that says you shouldn't feel jealous. You shouldn't feel murderous. You shouldn't want to sleep with your friend's husband. You shouldn't want to maybe sometimes murder something or run away, right? It's not about acting on those things, but it's about understanding it when it comes up and not repressing it. Because when you repress it, that's when it gets strong, and that's when it starts affecting your behavior. So how do we work with the shadow with our tarot cards? Now, this is the Empress from my Dark Wood Tarot, and we're going to be working with her in just a minute. In the dark wood and in any tarot deck, really, I love to use a reversal of the card as an opportunity to move into the card's shadow. Now, a reversal is when a card appears upside down to you in a reading. And typically, when we're working with tarot, there are a number of different ways that we can approach reversals, right? We can just ignore them altogether. And that's especially helpful if you're someone who's just starting to learn tarot. There's no reason to overwhelm yourself. Just ignore them, turn them right side up until you're ready to work with them. So you can ignore a reversal. You can look at a reversal as a blockage that's in your life, and then it becomes kind of a magical action when you've got, say, we've got this reversed Empress, and she's saying you're not being as creative as you could be, and then you take care of the block by just reversing her and saying, okay, that channel is now open for me. Like that's a magical action right there. So that's a way that you can use reversals. Reversals in large numbered card spreads become part of the pattern. Often they're the cards that are screaming, look at me, look at me. And they're asking you for extra attention. The traditional reversal is the opposite of a card's regular meaning. But when I talk about shadow reversing a card, what I'm talking about is an extra layer of darkness and richness. And to truly reverse a tarot card asks you to do two things. First of all, you are asked to actually enter the card, right? Every tarot card, every arcana, I like to think of them the archetypes, like the energies of plants, right? We can move into the energy of archetypal mint or nasturtium in our gardens. We can move into that plant, explore that plant medicine. We can sometimes meet the people who journeyed there before us. Well, the same is true of tarot cards, right? So to actually move into a tarot card, it's kind of with a soft gaze, with your mind's eye. Maybe your eyes are open, maybe they're closed, but it's when you focus on the card and you allow your sacred imagination, right, to literally move inside the card. What do you see? What do you smell? What does the card sound like if the hermit starts speaking to you? What does her voice sound like? What does she have to say? Move beyond the boundaries of the card. What does it smell like? What time of day is it? This is personal work with the cards, right? This brings such a richness to your practice. No one in the world experiences tarot like you do, right? No one. So what the shadow self of a card asks you, or I would ask you to do, is to move into a particular card, explore the card for what it is. So let's just try that here with Empress. So we move into the archetype of the Empress, and we see that she is the mother pregnant. We see that she is the goddess of fertility, that she is expansion, that she is nurturing, that she is mother, right? Now, to move into the shadow, we move deeper into the card, and we see the polar dark side. If the Empress is the mother, then the shadow of the Empress is the murderer, right? She is the one who destroys children. She is the one who destroys the creativity of yourself or of other people. So when you move into the shadow side, when you move into the dark side of a tarot card, you then want to take a look at how you have waged this darkness on yourself. So in the case of the Empress, when have you shut down your creativity? When have you not only not nurtured yourself, but been cruel to yourself? I mean, if we think about the self-talk, the way we talk to ourselves in our head, often we would never speak to another person, let alone a child, like that. Yet we allow this, right, to go in our mind. Like, this is the shadow of that card. And then move a little bit deeper. You know, when have you shut down the creativity of someone else? You know, you may not have been intending to do that. And this is the point of shadow work, right? We all justify our actions, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? They say. We all justify what we do. And even when we do bad, negative, or hurtful things, we'll make an excuse. Oh, I was stressed out. I was in a rush. I was tired. I wasn't thinking. I couldn't hear you. The gift of doing this work, right? The gift of, say, shadow reversing, the Empress, and maybe that translates into a time when you were really crappy that day, that you were just really a bad mom. Nobody's perfect, right? The gift of acknowledging that, right, is then we can make amends. You can acknowledge that maybe you shut down your best friend's creative idea, or that you yelled at your child. And the gift of that not only is the ability to apologize and make amends, you will not be as likely to do that again, right? Because you've shown light into your darkness. This technique is really, really great as well, because it also gives us an opportunity to move into some of the dark cards, like, say, the Three of Swords, the Five of Pentacles, the Nine of Swords, the scary cards. You can move into the scary cards, and when you go into their shadow sides, their shadows are actually fantastically bright and light. So you start to really understand that every single one of the cards in tarot are entire universes to themselves, and they're so thick and rich, and you never have to stop exploring. You get to go further and further. So I invite you guys to do that. Not necessarily when I wouldn't necessarily look at a shadow reversal when you're doing a card spread. This is really more when you're exploring the cards on your own, journaling with the cards, and just want to, like, step into the invisible world that's kind of right in front of us, and explore a little bit deeper. I'm going to open up the chat so that I can answer any questions that you guys have. A little Q&A session now. And so let me see. I think it's going to take a minute for me to see your questions. I hope I articulated this well. The book inside of the Darkwood Tarot really explains this. Oh, okay. All right. So someone just asked, I see the questions now. Someone just asked, do I think that there are cards that don't have a shadow? Absolutely, positively not. Because the tarot is nothing more than a reflection of us. Everything that exists in the world is a universe unto itself, right? Even down to the, like, molecular levels, right? We have little circles, right? The light, the dark. Yeah, there's absolutely a shadow to every single person and every single card in the tarot deck. Somebody just asked, are there specific spreads to work with the shadow self? Yes, there are. You can find them inside the Darkwood Tarot. I have a shadow self spread, obviously. And then in my book, 365 Tarot Spreads, there's definitely shadow spreads in there as well. And obviously you can do a Google search, I'm sure. Find plenty of them. Don't hesitate to create a spread for yourself. I find creating your own spreads, you just go deeper with something that you've made yourself. So don't just rely on other people to make spreads for you. Figure out, what do you want to know? Where do you want to go? And then create your spreads. Somebody says, any evil comes out of this card. So this is a great question. I love this person just used the word evil. What is evil? Typically, it's associated with darkness. Evil is those things that other people do. Somebody cast evil on me. You know, when you're working with shadow work, and you have to recognize that the monsters, the demons, are not out there. They're inside of us, right? They're inside of us. So shadow work allows you to get really real with the darkness that exists inside. And by doing that, right, by taking responsibility for yourself and for your actions, you're not going to have to go out and blame other people. And history is rife with the, capital O others who have been blamed when the problem is really inside of ourselves. So that's my answer to that question. Thank you. Oh, thanks. Somebody is saying that she loves working with the new deck. Thank you. That's lovely. Somebody just asked, when is the tarot deck available? So the Darkwood Tarot just started shipping, I think, on June 8th. So you can get this now. And maybe do a curbside pickup at your favorite metaphysical store as well. Like, don't forget to support indie bookstores. We love them. It seems like a good deck to use while navigating therapy for trauma, which many people are facing right now. I agree with that, Mickey. I agree with that. There's so much trauma happening right now. But what is interesting about darkness and shadow, right, is that is also space, right? The nature of the universe is dark. Most of the universe is dark matter. We are standing at the precipice of an incredible period of time where there's trauma, where people are grappling with the hardest things they've ever had to grapple with, but also at the same time, all of this space has opened up. And Einstein tells us that inside space, it's not just blank, it's more space, right? This is the expansion of the universe. This is the inhale and the exhale. This has never been more important to look at the dark sides of yourself and to take responsibility for the dark sides of yourself. Barbara had a good question that got looked over. So you were saying that the reversal work is more geared toward personal shadow exploration rather than working with others. What are your thoughts on performing tarot shadow work for others? Okay, so thank you, Raven. That's a really good question. I think that as a professional reader, right, you have to know who and what and where you're working with. I think that shadow work for some people can be really terrifying. I think we all know where our comfort zones are for readers as a reader. So as a general blanket statement, I would say this is definitely more something that you'll want to work on with yourself. Once you become proficient at kind of navigating your own shadow, perhaps you'll want to move out and do shadow work with other people. But then, some clients come to you and they're super evolved and they're like, let's go, I want to do some shadow work. So, if you're comfortable doing it and they're like on board and yes, and you know that it's a safe space, then yeah, go for it. Absolutely. It's a case-by-case basis. Yeah, deep spiritual, somebody is saying it's a great combination of spiritual work and practical psychology. And I agree. I think that psychology and the occult and magic and divination and all of that, there's an art, there is no lines between any of it. I think it's all the same stuff by a different name, and it's all here to help us evolve. So I want to say thanks to everybody. I also want to let you know that I'm doing another free shadow workshop this weekend. So if you go onto Facebook or Instagram, you'll see that's through the life and death. And I also am doing something called Tarot Palooza at the end of this month, the last weekend in June, which is like a big tarot retreat with Rachel Pollack and Liz Dean. I'm running a contest. You can win a VIP ticket on my Instagram. The winner will be announced tomorrow. So Google me, follow me if you liked this stuff. There's a lot of things coming up and a lot more opportunities to play with our cards. So let's see. This was so fun. All right. I asked a question before. I don't see it. I don't see it. Well, our time has come to an end. So like I said, thanks you guys for joining in. And thank you, Llewellyn, for having me. And I hope that you are safe and happy and with loved ones. And cast your cards well, everyone. Thank you.